there, my name is Brooke Hamby, and welcome to Cultural Creatives, the show that shows you how other people have blazed their own trail, lighting a way for others. As always, these people are examples for me to follow and for anyone else who watches these videos. Today, I have Dr. Sarah Seidelman, who was a medical doctor turned shamanic healer, artist, and life coach and author. So she has multiple books out, a spirit guide card deck. So she's an amazing woman, and you're going to love this interview. Without further ado, she's ready to come on. Hi, Sarah.
Good morning, Brooke. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I'm just oh my gosh, I'm loving all these interviews. You're just coming out. You're doing it. It's so awesome. And I love the cultural creative term is so cool. It's like, I don't know, that just opens up I don't know, it just kind of like, I love that it's tying in that anthropology connection and seeing it from that, that's your unique perspective, which makes it so interesting. All of a sudden it's like, oh, what is that?
Yeah, it really is. And I'd actually heard the term years ago about, I guess it's been 20 years ago, I heard that term, that people were starting to introduce that term in anthropology. A friend of mine who was working on her PhD in cultural anthropology, she gave me this magazine, and it was like a whole article about people who are cultural creatives. And I was like, whoa, nobody ever, there's people who just like did all kinds of off the beaten path, like how to organic farms and, all this stuff. So now it means a whole different thing, I think. So
I could see like that being a part of this, like the definition, like listed in every so people understand, well, what is a culture? Am I one? Like, oh yeah.
Yeah. And you are an artist, you're an author, you're a shamanic healer and a life coach, and used to be a medical doctor. So how did you had the first inkling of what you should do? You're a medical doctor, and what were those things, those aha moments that you realized you needed to change something?
Well, I think for me, it was just a feeling of that I was disengaged, that I didn't really I wasn't as excited about what I was doing anymore. And a lack of enthusiasm for doing pathology is not a good thing. That's not a situation you want to be in. I suppose it's not a situation anybody should be in, but in particular, pathologists, we're disease hunters, and we're paid to look at, like, a pap smear, for example, has like 100,000 cells on it. And we're supposed to pick up the 4 or 5 clusters of cells, it's just very detail oriented, very intense kind of work. And the stakes are extremely high, whether you screw up or you do it, you get the correct answer for the patient. And so I think that bothered me. I was like, it was a very unsettling feeling, like, I don't really want to be here. And here I am. And so I think that motivated me to eventually, that's why I hired a life coach. I was like, I don't think I need therapy, but I think this newfangled thing I've heard about life coaching. And that helped me a lot, because my coach, who you can find her at mylifecoach.com. No kidding. That's her website. I'm like, I don't know who you are, lady, but she's a wonderful woman from Canada named Michelle. Check her out. She's awesome. And she just first she just listened to me. And then I had a lot to talk about. I had a lot to get off my chest at that point. I think there was a lot of grief and other things from, being a mom and having to go to work every day, or thinking that I had to go to work in the intense way I did. Anyway, she helped me to find my freedom in many ways at work. And I started enjoying work more, at least the interactions with other people, because I stopped being such a martyr and I stopped being such a people pleaser for the most part. I mean, I'm sure I didn't do that perfectly, but some of my bitterness abated, which was all of my own creation, by the way. It was nobody else, I didn't have any massive perpetrators. It was mostly because of the way I was reacting to what was going on in the world. That's what was my best idea, to people please my way out of it. Anyhoozle, after that, slowly I started being more compassionate for myself. And I thought, well, what would feel good would be to work less. And she helped me to kind of figure out how to go part-time, which I eventually did. That was better. The more part-time I went, the more I was like, maybe I could take a sabbatical. And then I worked that out. That took a few years to figure all that out, just financially, et cetera. And then that sabbatical was really the first time that, whoa, like really things started to shift. And I always tell people, if you're really hating your job or you're not liking what you're doing anymore, like create a little space, even just a little weekend, even just like an hour a week where you just take yourself to a coffee house, whatever it is, go away for a weekend retreat that looks good to you, or just to be alone with yourself. That time may not be necessarily fun because you're still going to be confused and it still may be hard, but it'll start to crack that door open. Whatever door is trying to open for you, it'll start to open that. And that summer, I stumbled into these. I started spending way more time in nature than I had in years. I mean, I was living under fluorescent lights and rarely seeing the sun in those days. And I think I was manic for a while because I was just like, isn't it beautiful outside? And my neighbors would look at me like, she's a little crazy, but she's our neighbor. I was kind of almost in an ecstasy that summer. I can barely describe it because I was just home with my kids. That wasn't all easy, but like parts of it were ecstatic. But mostly I was just happy to be a little bit, And that's when I stumbled into this old idea that, this ancient idea that the wild creatures that cross our paths might have wisdom to share with us, which seemed really strange, but also intrigued me massively. And when I say massively, like it's all I thought about.
Yeah. Obsessive. That's when it's right. When you're obsessive. Yeah.
Exactly. Whatever you're obsessive over, well, maybe if it's foods or drugs or shopping, maybe, maybe not that, but if it's something weird, then you're probably on a hot track. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. And that's exactly what I want to share with people is this uncomfortable feeling you have, like you don't belong, like you are, like you said, it was just like you were uncomfortable. You weren't happy. You were just dissatisfied with where you were in your life. And it just took those small steps.
Yeah, there's actually a corollary, which I think is so hilarious. In the German language, there's so many wonderful words. And one of the words that I learned when I was started really seriously getting into animal totems and the meaning of, animals visiting. I spent this time with this wonderful birder out in the Sax-Zim bog. And he mentioned this term, Zugenruha. I was like, wait, come again. What's that word? He's like, it's Zugenruha. And it's this German word, which is what describes the way that birds behave when they're getting ready to migrate. So birds, like, especially this time of year in the fall, as we're recording this, it's like, you'll see them in your yard and they're kind of like, they're not just like resting on a branch and like, they're kind of like, they're just like sitting, they're flying, kind of flapping about in groups and landing and flapping and landing. And, they're just doing this weird thing. It's like they have almost like they have ants in their pants. And it's really this discomfort, this weird thing, like the shift is coming. They know it's getting to be time to fly back to Antarctica or fly back down to the southern tip of South America. And I think that's kind of what happens when we realize things aren't quite right in our own lives and something's got to give, like something's got to change. Like this marriage isn't working or this job isn't working. So I need to go into marriage therapy or whatever it is that is next. And it's not necessarily going to be easy. So maybe that's all the fluttering, like, oh God, I wonder if the birds are thinking, oh God, it's that 4,000-mile journey last year, like Harry didn't pull his weight and I had to fly the front row of the V of the geese all the way down there. Damn. And whatever. Hope Harry's had a better summer. I mean, it endlessly entertains me to think of animals having the kind of problems we have because they obviously don't. I mean, they're not stuck up here like we often are. They're just, moving on instinct, which I think that's what the animals really helped me to do is start to live by my instincts again. Not in a primitive way, but in I think if we move from that silent voice inside of us that tells us the next right thing for us to do, it's so powerful,
It's like that getting quiet you need to kind of remove yourself. Remove yourself from culture and observe and be in the wild so you can realize your own wild nature.
Totally. And you have to suppress all those parts of you that have learned to play the culture game and have learned, in my particular case, I'm wearing the t-shirt. You're not crazy. You're codependent. Like,
Oh, I love that
I'm
one.
so codependent on so many people and so many things. I'm like, oh my God, are you okay? You're not having a good day. Can I help you? What can I do?
And that's my fault because you're not happy.
Yeah, let me fix that for you.
Yeah.
Just being so distracted by other people that I'm and what's going on out there and not paying attention to what's going on in here, because if I do that, I can actually be of much better service to people.
Mm-hmm.
If they need me or if they want the help.
Right. Yeah, we're of no help when we're not in the right state of mind at all.
No.
And you point out something too that you did that just seems like a natural movement for a lot of people is when they do decide to make change, they start to surround themselves with either a tribe that supports them or the wild. Going outside is something that I found like so far has been like a commonality. It's just like they start to basically look at the junk in front of them, what they haven't dealt with, or things they start to realize that there's things that they are not addressing, but they have to go outside first or just leave the culture for a little bit. Even leave a job.
Right, like the hero's journey, or like the Buddha who had to leave the had to leave the beautiful emperor's palace or whatever and go out and see what was happening in the real world. And that's where he discovered, there was a lot of suffering, but there was a lot of beauty out there too, and realized he didn't want to go back to that castle, that palace again.
Right.
Yeah, I found a lot of understanding and I felt belonging when I joined Martha Beck's life coach training. So I think if we, follow that instinct, whatever it is, are you drawn to a class to tan hides? Are you drawn to for me, it's always been learning and education. Like I love to learn. So I was drawn to learn more about life coaching because it had helped me so much in my life. I thought, well, maybe I could help people like that. And there I discovered all these people who are very similar to me, like highly sensitive, really caught up in other people's lives, trying to save other people from this and that. Meanwhile, completely ignoring their own life, what a wreck it was. Because it's much more fun to be obsessed about other people's problems sometimes. I mean, it's not fun. I'm not saying, I don't mean that. It's torture to try to be living through somebody else's life.
Easier. It's easier.
In a way. In the short term,
it is.
Long term, it's hell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that really helped a lot because I definitely didn't feel that in my pathology department. With certain individuals I did, but a lot of people weren't interested in personal transformation in that department, or at least not outwardly so. I don't know. Maybe
you couldn't tell. Yeah. Well, that goes to kind of, you've already answered this question, but one of the questions I was going to ask you is, what were some hurdles or decisions that you had to make that were like mega hard? Because a lot of people, when they do make a transition, either they could just be like quitting a job, or that's not the first step. Really, being part-time is not the first step. There are so many along the way, but can you kind of clarify what are some, and then I'm going to ask you about the good stuff. So that's like what were some hard?
No, it's like all this stuff is so hard and brutal. I mean, that's why I've written books about it. Cause I'm just like, it looks like from the outside, oh, she quit her doctor job. Now she's really happy doing this other job. But it's like in between those 2 points, there's just like, like this crazy ride that you're like, what's happening to me? This isn't fun. Things that, were hard or sometimes still hard, but I guess like one was, I did go part-time and then I went on that sabbatical and then I went back to work as planned, but I went back, not working very much. But when I would go back to work, I remember sitting at my microscope, just going, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I did this as long as I did. This is like nothing I want to be doing right now. Like I was just so clear, like I can't stand this. Like I do not want to do this. And I was really faced with that extremely uncomfortable feeling because my other part of me was like, Sarah, just go back to work, be reasonable, just do 2 days a week. You can do it. Then you'll be financially, your family will not have to make any difficult choices. Everything can go off as planned, And at the time, I remember having this conversation with my husband, and I was just like, I'm at that point, I was like dabbling. I was sort of doing this part-time casual thing, but I'm like, what I think I'm going to do is I really just need to go back 2 days a week. that's just what I'm going to do. And we were brushing our teeth and he just stopped and he looked at me and he goes, but you seem so happy. He's like, why would you go back now? Why turn back now? Like you're just so happy. And I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, it was like the kindest thing I think he's ever said to me. I'm sure he said a lot of kind things, but it felt so wonderful because I was like, oh my God, you notice I'm happier and you think that I don't have to go back. You're considering this as an option that I don't have to go back. And of course, well, we can all talk about that. What would you do if your partner who's making half the money in the house, said they were going to quit would you support them in that? But in any case, he was like, we'll figure it out, and so I didn't do that, but then those kind of the golden handcuffs kept coming back to me. And it's just because I really wasn't making a lot of money. I'd have a few coaching clients, but I was like, how the heck do you make money doing this? This is just like, I had just started out. And I remember somebody saying to me, what you need to do is you need to do a ceremony, because it was like the golden handcuffs kept pulling me back, but really I was trying to be in this other new world, and I was kind of caught in between. And she said, you need to do a ceremony. Because I knew that I wasn't supposed to go back. I knew it every time I'd go to work. I think, no, I can't do this. And so I did a fire, just set a fire and, sat before it and kind of prayed. And I created this like effigy of my pathology job and like all the things like my badge was on there. My, like all these old emails that I'd rather not receive in the future were printed out and stuck on there. And then like a letter of all the things that, I was grateful for, but now I was ready to move on and let it all go. Put that in the fire, watched it burn. And as it burned, the box kind of bloomed in ashes into this like flower. It was like, what it looked like to me was like a peony flower.
Oh,
and in
wow.
that moment, I knew like, whatever happens, it's going to be okay. Cause you're scared. You're just so scared to let go. I think that's the biggest theme for me is it's so terrifying to let go of the known and really step into the unknown, and really
Right.
step into that. And then of course I made a prayer, I want to be useful in this way. I don't know how, but like, I want to help people. I want to travel. I want to do these things. Blew that in a stick and put that in the fire. And that really helped me because, there's something about like in the work I do now, it's like we do these ceremonies and we do these healings and we pray because we want to signal to that invisible world or the consciousness or the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, the goddess, that we're ready for a change and we could use some help. And then things start to happen. They just do. It shifts things in this material world has been my experience anyway.
Right. So things started happening for you. So it sounded like it kind of, after that, it kind of turned to.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was like, oh, and then after that it was so easy.
Like
whatever,
within
but
3 months, you were.
it was like the next shift, I was able to keep going. And then I was able to, about another year passed of me being casual. I think I worked 5 days in 1 year at that job. And then right before I went to go on this pilgrimage to India, I got a call from my department and they said, unless you work more hours, we won't be able to give you your privileges. Like, you have hospital privileges and we're going to have a departmental meeting about that, whether we could give you privileges or not. Would you like to attend? And I said, no, thank you. And then I knew it's like, this is just one more kind of nail in the coffin. It's time to really let this go. And I remember going on a journey to my spirit animal, Alice. And I said, Alice, what do I do? Like, should I keep doing CMEs to try to maintain my my license, all this stuff? She took all my diplomas and she just like chucked them in the river in the spirit realms. And she just said, where you're going, you do not need those.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, that rings true. And so that summer I let all that go. I let my license lapse. And I was at this flea market in California with my sister at the Pasadena flea market. And there were these wonderful artworks that were all these crazy beasties. They were like kind of weird and funky and hilarious. And I bought 4 of them and I took them home and I took my diplomas, which were in these lovely frames. And then I popped these beasties into the frames and it was like art replacing this, this.
Oh, wow. So symbolic.
so symbolic. It wasn't like I planned it. It was just like I came home with these prints and then they just happened to fit into these frames that I had lying about now because I got, and that was just like looking back that I mean, I think I've been trying to be an artist for a long time. I just couldn't find the permission or whatever. Just yeah, with
Right.
it takes time. So be patient with yourself, be patient with whatever your process is. Doesn't happen overnight. I think that's what like, I love humor, and I feel like as I've traveled all over and been benefit to sit in ceremony with many beautiful shamans from many different corners of the world, it's like the one thing that is universal in them is this absolute wicked sense of humor because they see the darkest things, they sit with the saddest, most tragic situations, and it's just like but, like, and they will be very serious as they begin their ceremony, but usually at some point in the night or some point during the thing, the twinkle will come out and they will say something that just flattens you. And it's just so wonderful, and I think I want that because I think we need that humor, we need that lightness because it's hard to face our own stuff. It's hard to face ourselves for the 60 billionth time. We said we weren't gonna lose our crap, and we did.
Yeah.
I mean, it just happened to me yesterday, like, somebody poked me about being on my phone, and I was like I just, like, popped off, and it was just like but then I went back pretty quick because I mean, that's the thing, you get better at it, it's just, like, humbling myself. I was like, "I am sorry, I lost my I this is where I was at, and when you said that, I just lost it, and I'm really sorry." And the person was like, "It's okay. I was really kind of freaked out." And the other person was, whatever. We all just kind of, it was so beautiful because it's like, there's so much grace, and
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that. Um, so yeah, thank you. I think humor, and the animals help us to, they're just
Yeah.
so innocent, like they're just doing their own thing. They're not like hot up in their heads like we are. So I think it's fun to think about them.
Right.
I don't
Well,
know. They're just fun to think about.
they are totally, and I have the same experiences. I use a lot of bugs and because sometimes there are no animals around that I'm hunting, and so that I have bugs. But I have to tell you this: the entire time we've been talking, there has been a hawk flying all around, making all kinds of noise. So it's going to be on this recording because she has been all around us, just flying around.
I
So
love that. I was gifted over the pandemic. Just one moment here, I'll grab. We sent a gift to a friend who we thought might be struggling because of the pandemic and what was going on and people losing their job. And he gifted me with this hawk wing. And
oh,
it's
wow.
I don't know, this
Wow.
may be illegal to possess, I don't know, but it was a gift in spirit given to me, and so I really treasure it, and I've, danced with it and done other things where I kinda got to experience what it's like to be a hawk, and it was just, like, so beautiful, so thank
Wow.
you, hawk, for blessing us with your presence. That's pretty
It,
awesome.
yes, it is beautiful. Okay, so I have a last question.
Yes.
Um, if you are speaking directly somebody right now who is on the precipice of change and they may know they need to move in a direction, um, whatever it may be, what advice would you give them?
Well, probably a couple things. The first would be I would invite them to connect with the spirit animal if that's something they're interested in, to go looking for one because I find that as we learn to align with the energy and force of this beautiful creature that it often can just teach us a lot about what we need and what our gifts are that we have to share. And then the other thing would be just to make a little room for yourself. Like, give yourself, could you be loving enough to give yourself a little time? Could you be loving enough to let yourself take a weekend off and trust that your kids and your dogs will be okay? I think for women in particular, like our kids are like, what does Anne Lamott say? They're like our heart living outside of our body.
Mhm.
It's the hardest thing for us to put ourselves in front of them. But what I always say is like, how you live is how your kids will live. They're going to see you by example. And so if you give yourself time and they see that one day, they will give themselves time when they need it. Yeah.
Thank you. That you shared a lot of just everything that you are, because your wisdom speaks to so many people that they can really connect with animals, helping them find their way. But also your own journey, how you realize that you are not in the right place. And you kind of found yourself there. You wake up one day and you're like, whoa, how did I get here? And it took some years to really dig, and you took that time for yourself and you had the courage to take the time for yourself. Thank you for sharing all that, because you have a lot of strength in you that you can show to other people. And I thank you for agreeing to interview today. And I'm excited about sharing this video to everyone else. I know they're going to love it.
And I'm so excited you're doing backyard safari and encouraging people to do that, because it's like, ooh, the magic that's going to happen to people who just decide to take a few hours one afternoon, or maybe an hour,
even
maybe
yeah,
30 minutes.
30 minutes every day. That's what I always say, is that I have like a 10-day journey on my website that's just like, it's 30 minutes a day. Sometimes it's just 10. If you're scared, just do 10 minutes. And you can do it with a friend. Always, you hear my Addie, my girl dog, barking. She's my she wolf. She shows me how to live in the world. If it's just 10 minutes, it's just 10 minutes. But it's that first step of doing something for yourself. So, yeah. And that's why I understand the connecting with animals and nature is how we begin. That is so true. That's
Amen.
Yeah, it begins with that first step outside into connecting with your wild. Lovely talking to you today. I loved it.
Okay. Mwah. Have a great week, Brooke.
You too. Thank you, Sarah. Bye. I'll see you soon. And there you have it. That was Sarah Seidelman. FollowYourFeelGood.com, which she offers some amazing advice, doesn't she? You should follow your intuition when you feel a lack of enthusiasm for what you're doing, and then take some time, give yourself some space, and follow those things that you just become obsessed with. And I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Until next time on Cultural Creatives, this is Brooke Hamby.